Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Safety and Operations Committee meeting. We'll move forward. I've already taken attendance. Just a note that from a committee meeting date, this is the last one for the calendar year. But we will reconvene after tonight's meeting in January, on January 23rd. So moving forward into the presentation, we have Mr. Fabrizio. He will start us out.
Good evening, everybody. Next slide, Jim. Operations topics. So we're still investigating a new operations building, and we just have some more options. We're going through the paces here, basically a why or why not. We've looked at pretty much all the schools. For the land we currently have, we've looked at Middle School West. That's a prime location. It's accessible from a separate road. It's tucked away in the back. There's plenty of space available. Utilities are close to where the structure would go. We also looked at Schwanksville, behind the school up on the hill. But the students are currently utilizing that space for outdoor activities. We've also looked at Skipback to the left, adjacent to the elementary, near the township property. Again, we would need to take a field to put a structure there. And it would be less curb appeal to the school if it went out front. And then the purchase of an existing building, which are far and few between. So we narrowed it down, if we were going to use existing property, to Middle School West. So utilities are there. We can tie in pretty easily. Sewer, we have an ejector pump is right in the back there. All the utilities are right there. If we decide to move forward with this option, the township would require a sketch plan. I call it an upgrade from a napkin sketch, basically. Just give the township an idea of what we're proposing to do. Nothing too formal, and then they'll come back and tell us what is required permitting-wise. I did reach out to Gottschall, Kane, and O'Rourke, and I'm waiting to hear back with a not to exceed for this sketch plan. I think it would be in the neighborhood of around 5,000 in that range. And then the other option would be to purchase an existing building. Next slide, Jim. So currently for sale is the building directly across the street from us at 2 Iron Bridge. It's currently, I believe, a Cadence Academy. It's 10,000 square feet on 2 acres. And that's 3.3 million. Next one. The other option is the old state police barracks, which is rather large. It's 3.5 acres. There's 3 separate buildings on there. One is currently occupied by a gym, so you would have revenue income stream from that. And then there's 2 other large buildings with an abundance of parking. And that's at 3.5 million. Any questions on the operations building search / walking through our paces?
Yeah, Joe. Is West where, is that your preference, or do you just, no money on the table, where would you prefer to be?
Ideally, I'd prefer to be more central in the district. Because coming from west, if there's an emergency, it would take time to come down.
Yeah, obviously, you're at the
Obviously,
outskirts of...
we're at the outskirts of the district. So from, like a time frame dealing with everything we do near the, I'll call this the central hub, it's not ideal, but it would work.
Yeah. So from a central point of view, Cadence would probably be the best.
Either Cadence or, somewhere else in that vicinity. But, that's built out right now as a daycare,
Yeah.
So you might have to do a little bit of work in there.
Oh, you would?
Yeah.
One other question. On main campus, I guess it's connected to main campus, there's a triangular plot of land essentially across the street from the duck to the...
That's the old Price property.
Yeah.
So I investigated that with John Moran at the township, and that's actually in the floodplain.
That was going to be...
Yes. So, and there's also a defunct railroad track that runs through there. which is in contention because no one knows who owns it. If I'm right on that, Mr. Weaver, or not.
Yes.
But
Is there also a utility right away through the
there
middle
is.
of
So
that?
we have switchgear running through there, but we own that. I don't think that would be too much of an issue. But the floodplain, from what I was told, was expanded after the last big flood we had here. So building down there, I would imagine you would have to, build up to get out of that floodplain.
And I think that would be the only space on main campus that would basically have enough room that isn't either part of an
Well-
existing building or athletic field or.
It would either be
The wa-
there or behind East. We did look, but that was around $4 million to put something behind there. Kind of where the PV Woods trailhead starts. It would go kind of in there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So one of the things that we might want to add to that conversation piece is from a committee's perspective, just to let you know, we have talked about an operations building now for the better part of a year. And so a suggestion has been made by Ms. White, who's not here, that we kind of take this idea, instead of bringing it up every month and progress that we've made or wherever, just kind of adding that as part of a central task force kind of process to lump it together so that we don't keep on going over the same stuff that we have. Because of the conversation about location, cost, availability, what it is that we want out of a building like this, the conversion factor, all of those things. And Joe and I and Dr. Russell kind of agreed with that at that point in time. So we will continue behind the scenes to talk about that. It will become part of the task force committee as a possibility. But for now, moving forward, there'll be, until we're ready to speak more to it, that's about where we'll end up now from a committee's perspective, okay? Just in case you come in January and you expect more of an update.
Okay, our next task was our shed replacement plan. So we've started, still preliminary, a shed audit of all of the storage units across the district. And we've identified 37 storage units on district property. Some belong to different youth organizations and some belong to the district. The primary purpose is storage, and we've seen sheds in age from 1 to 15 plus years old. Our plan proposed is based on age and priority of need. I think we need to standardize on the replacement sheds on the obviously style, size, color, etc. We're currently working on a timeline for replacement. I'm working with Josh Berthoff in Grounds and Bob Felty to see what we can do as far as condensing, and we have to interview the occupants of the shed to see if they have enough room, if they need to expand and so forth, to get a good picture of what's going on. The other thing is access, who gets in and how. So right now, the district really doesn't have access to these sheds. It's whoever's equipment or gear is in there has the keys. So we would want to standardize on some kind of locking system for all the structures. Click on that shed audit real quick.
Okay, so it's up.
Okay, so this is just kind of the white dots are kind of the sheds throughout main campus, kind of where they're dispersed right now. We just did a quick pin drop on there. And again, we just took pictures of all the sheds, got the size, kind of what's inside, who uses it, for all 37 sheds. I won't bore you with 37 slides, but some are in desperate need of repair, replacement.
One of the other things is, Joe had mentioned real quick, we have to do some discovery about who is using these sheds. Historically speaking, other than the district saying yes or no, over the years, these sheds have kind of exchanged hands and been put in place with the operations department okay and approval and the high school principal. At this point in time, a lot of those people that have been doing that are now gone. They've moved on, they've retired. And so we have different generations and cycles of various sports teams that are using these now. We don't necessarily have a connection when we put them in or allow them to be put in. So that's part of the makeup of the ground that we need to do, as Joe mentioned, to make sure that we find out who is using these sheds and why and what is necessarily in there.
Do we technically own all the sheds, or is that kind of a little murky because of who built it or placed it on the property?
I would say the vast majority of them we do not own. Those were sponsored and put in place by booster groups over the years. We approved of them putting them there at that particular time over the years. We are not responsible for replacing them or fixing them up. I guess recently we actually had to fix a few of those because they were just falling apart. So this is really an effort for us to reclaim that and get a standard process in place, as Joe mentioned, standardized color, size, all of that kind of stuff that you would typically expect on a school district campus, to kind of bring that around as well as part of this plan.
The idea to basically, with the sheds, go through them similar to how we have the vehicles in a grid and expected lifetimes and
Yeah, so that's what we're working on now, Josh and I. We're working on, prioritizing, from replace immediately to, however long it takes. I would imagine this would be a couple-year project. We don't have funds allocated at this point in time, so that's another thing we'll have to go over, funding.
the other thing we may want to look at is, depending on the locations of these sheds,
Consolidation.
consolidate, exactly, taking 3 sheds, building a larger building with
Yep.
perhaps 3 access points.
Yep.
Okay, great.
So for the sheds that we don't own, are we kind of taking eminent domain over some of these things and just like putting our own things in place?
That's a really good question. We'll have to have discussions with I guess I'll call them owners of the sheds to see where they are, and what they would like to see come out of this.
If they're not if the sheds are not owned by the district, are we getting any kind of a usage fee for allowing them to be there?
No. Well, I guess that's a good question. However, we don't have space for this stuff inside anyway. So if this is legitimately our booster groups that are utilizing space, we don't have space inside of our buildings anyway, so we need these. So that's kind of the trade-off, Dr. Weston. That's a legitimate question.
That addresses the should we part
Yes.
of the question there. And, as Mr. Liggett said, I think it seems to me that there's a lot of opportunity for consolidation here. So I hope that's, my thought was, maybe a lot of this stuff could go into the football equipment shed that we've been talking about putting in. And some other opportunities for consolidation, I'm sure, are there as well.
We're good on those, Jim.
All right,
We can
thank you.
back out of that.
All right, I will back out of that.
Next slide. Just some other projects we're working on. We did a quick refresh of the high school comp gym 4. We took the opportunity to test out some new products to get the 4 ready for the basketball season. So this is just a after shot. Hilliard came out and lent their expertise and some chemicals, like a wax, to give it a refresh. So moving forward, we should be able to tackle this in-house to keep it looking nice and clean. The high school student lot lighting upgrade, we're adding some additional lighting down by 29. We're going to start with 5 flood heads on the existing poles and then go from there, see where we land lighting wise. So they're going to be pretty bright.
Are they going to be separately switched?
No,
Those spotlights will be on anytime the lights are on.
they're LED, so the draw shouldn't be that bad. DO paving, the contractor started staging today. They will be starting milling tomorrow in the back, and then on Monday, they'll be ripping out a majority of the current asphalt and getting on their way for paving. The barrier gates on campus, the contractor will be starting on December 17th through the 19th to get those installed. So that's where we are on that. Any questions? Okay.
Okay, so we have a slide or two here from Mr. Ganesh in regards to Middle School West and Middle School East auditorium updates. You can see where we're at specific to Middle School East tasks. We continue to move forward, processing payments, the work continues. Our portion of it internally, we continue to move on. So things continue to progress nicely for East. Similar fashion with West. Again, we're scheduled to be completed with phase 1 by 12/20 for West and 1/15/2025 for East. That's a very important point for us to meet, and a deadline and a goal, because our musical season is upon us right after the holidays. So it's very important that we finish and maintain that deadline. So both of those seem to be in order. Evergreen Playground. So,
That's when he leaves.
okay. All right, that's okay. I talked to Mr. Marsh, Mr. Fabrizio, and I can move through this. We've had a good collaboration with Mr. Marsh in regards to Evergreen, carrying the ball forward from where it was in the summer when he took over to where we are at now. So we've done a complete review in person multiple times with Ryan and staff, and Mr. Marsh actually developed this time frame and this timeline for us to help follow. There are 3 areas that we've broken down, and again, area 1 is the main playground. Area 2, there's nothing there, but we plan on putting something there. And area 3 is an area where we are not touching. We feel that that's appropriate at this time. So the timeline has been provided there. It's meant for Mr. Marsh to present to his stakeholders at Evergreen to make sure that they have input. He wants to drive this process. And Ryan, I don't know if you want to add to the conversation, but I think we're in pretty good shape moving forward.
Well, yeah, thanks. And I just wanted to come to this committee. I've presented to Home and School last week on a fundraising front with this vision, and also to the faculty this morning for comment. And really the pivot point on this is the new, working with the co-stars Jeff Moore, the new reduced rate catalog comes out January 1st. So the timeline works around that. And the goal is going to be for areas 1 and 2 to put together 3 packages of options. So we're not going to get caught up on colors. We're not going to get caught up on other things. We're going to have a community meeting with Evergreen's community in January after we put together in the first part of January 3 viable different options for what these spaces could look like. And then we'll take input from the school community. I'll come back to this committee at the end of January seeking approval. And then we're on our way. Right now, the mock-ups are just sample mock-ups, have us landing in the range of about $145,000 to $150,000, with Home and School working to fundraise up to $15,000 to $20,000 for us. So I feel pretty good about that. It's an ambitious timeline, but the goal is to get our 5th graders a chance to use it in the spring. The larger vision is to use both those spaces for the little kids, what would traditionally be a kindergarten playground, and then the older kids, freeing the space out front to consider a move of the outdoor classroom, but that's separate and decoupled from this effort first. So that's where we are. So there's a larger vision involved there. So.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Marsh for this project? I think that the preliminary data and numbers and estimated figures are pleasant. That's a pleasant surprise for us. And I think that goes towards the commitment there to make sure that we have an adequate playground. Appreciate it. Okay, moving forward, Dr. Clune, PV Woods.
All right, this is just an update on where we are with a number of projects at PV Woods we wanted to bring to your attention. We're looking to revamp or improve an existing boardwalk that exists out behind Middle School East in the Lenape Arboretum. We want to add a couple of viewing platforms off the side of the boardwalk, put some railings up, make it much safer. It's actually it's like over 25 years old. It's in a little bit of disrepair. We certainly want to improve it, make it safer. In addition, we're also proposing a new walkway through a new trail that we blazed through the Arboretum in order to complete a circuit for the Storybook Trail that we also want to have going in. Administration is working with John Moran and Barry Isid to nail down getting the permits and anything that we need to install. And I also want to bring to your attention, behind the cafeteria at the high school, years ago there were two bridges that were built by Tech Ed. They're completely collapsed, falling down. They're really in a real bad state of disrepair. We are proposing, or would like to work toward installing 3 new bridges back that way, which would help with the trail circuit that we would like to extend going through Lenape Arboretum, and that is kind of an ongoing process. Also want to bring to your attention these 2 gateways that we've installed, the 2 storybook trails that are going in, and also a really cool project with shipping container. But let's start with the gateway. Okay, so on the left you're seeing we no longer have the braces on it. There's actually a gateway there that's made out of these 6x6 pressure treated lumber. It's actually installed with concrete, no permit required. To the right you see one of the 2 signs that we've produced, and it's got our logo for the Storybook Trail. We're actually going to install it on the top of that gateway, and it's a little hard to tell, but when you walk through the gateway to the left, you see what's located there. On the right-hand side, we actually have a poster station, as well as our first station for the Storybook Trail where you'd go and read, and there's actually 22 stations or cases where they have pages from a storybook, which brings you around just about a half mile out of Muhlenberg Woods. A similar gateway we're hoping to put in the coming, by next week, out at Lenape Arboretum. And then sometime after that, we want to install these 2 signs. So when you walk in, you have this really nice sign. We'll go to the next slide. This is the boardwalk. Like I said, if you see the picture to the left, it's currently there. Some of the beams underneath are going. We have looked at it with some folks, including Tech Ed, and we've gone out with Mr. Fabrizio. There are, it does need a little bit of work underneath. Some of the wood that's there seems to be pretty good. It's 116 feet long. We would like to see a railing on either side. We'd like to see 2 bump out areas in part, so when classes go out, there's a little bit more room for them to move around, and they could view birds or take a look at the natural environment that's there. And we'd certainly like to be able to just upgrade and make that a better walkway for the public and for our students walking across. We're waiting on permits, and as soon as that is done, we would certainly look to get a contractor out to be able to upgrade the boardwalk. I should say that the boardwalk was originally put in by volunteers, teachers included, but over like 25 years ago. It's definitely in need of an upgrade. And it is an essential part of the pathway for this new Storybook Trail that's going in as well at Lenape Arboretum. Go to the next one. We're also proposing in this new Blaze Trail, which actually creates a complete circuit for us with the Storybook Trail. We blazed an area that we think a walkway. It's only about 6 inches at the deepest part from the ground, so it doesn't need a railing or anything, but it would make transit, it's about 44 feet is what we're talking about. It would make transit across this one area that you see in the photo to the bottom right, I think a lot smoother and easier for families and our students walking across. So we would propose that as as also a walkway that we would put in if when we get the permit. Two funding sources to pay for these two upgrades that we are currently suggesting. The one is the foundation awarded Lenape Arboretum $7,500 for